Evening, guys. My name's Lonnie. I'm a real alcoholic. Okay, we're getting into chapter 7 now, working with others. Let's get a little introduction into this chapter 7. It says, practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics! Exclamation point. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. Life will take on a new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. Okay, let's stop right there for a second, man. To see a fellowship grow up about you, carrying this message, okay? One thing I got hit with early is, I didn't have to fit in with Alcoholics Anonymous. We really don't. We join our home groups, we get our service positions. Does not mean that I'm going to be friends with all these people in this home group. It used to be that way, yes. We're going to read in the book where they had a tight-knit group, okay? But what happened with me is I got into this book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was taught this message of Alcoholics Anonymous, and getting into this book and carrying this message, I have seen a fellowship grow up about me. Not everybody in my home group. A lot of my friends, a lot of my fellowship is not in my home group. In my situation right now, the last 10 months, I've been doing extensive online work. 90% of my fellowship is online, okay? But it's because I'm carrying this message to other alcoholics. I have found some friends. And a lot of those friends are newcomers, people I have taken through the steps. And we are friends. There is no doubt about that, just as much as any other friend I have. And so getting to the point of nothing can so much ensure immunity from drinking as carrying this message. Let's go back to Bill's story. Bill starts us out. He's talking about his friend, okay, that's coming to see him. And on page 9 on Bill's story, right, where his friend told him of this simple religious idea and a practical program of action. That's what we do. We just simply appear to people. We talk to people about these simple 12 steps, a practical program of action. Chapter 7 will tell us when, where, and how to bring up the book at a proper time, how to bring up these steps at a proper time, okay? But the idea here is that was 2 months ago and the result was self-evident. It worked. He had come to pass his experience along to me. So Ebby had 2 months sobriety, and he 12-step Bill W. Thank God nobody in the Oxford group told Ebby that he had to be sober a year before he went to talk to somebody about going through this process and this step work. Thank God for that. Now, people will bring up the controversy. Well, Ebby was a slipper. Ebby didn't stay sober the rest of his life. There's even a lie that Ebby died drunk, right? Yeah, Ebby had some problems. Ebby relapsed. But you know what? The man passed away sober. The man was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous for the rest of his life. Bill W. in the 70s, I believe it was one of Bill's last talks. I forget which conference it was, but Bill W. always considered Ebby his sponsor. So Ebby had had a spiritual experience, something that was so profound and so dramatic that at 2 months sobriety, he just had to tell somebody. And he called on his old friend, who he knew was a drunk and could possibly use this program. And so let's go to another part of 12 stepping. Okay. Bill W. goes through his steps. We know that Ebby got him in the hospital. Ebby went to see him in the hospital. Started working some steps with him in the hospital. Okay. My sponsor tells the story that my grant sponsor tells a story that he was in the hospital and Dr. Bob finally, they had a bunch of people come meet him and tell him about Alcoholics Anonymous, tell him about, not Alcoholics Anonymous, but tell him about this program and how they had found this cure, right? And Clarence would sit there and he's like, Doc, he's telling us to Dr. Bob, he said, all these fellas are nice, man. They're coming to talk to me and they're telling me that they found a way out of this alcoholism, but they're not telling me what to do. They're not telling me what to do. How do I do it? And so they were 12-stepping him. And Doc finally, in the hospital, while Clarence was in the hospital, he asked him a point-blank question. And they got on their knees and they prayed. Right there in the hospital. Man did his third step. And so this idea that we have to wait a certain amount of time, this idea that we don't talk to drunks. Ebby was talking to Bill W. while he was drinking. I'm pretty sure Bill probably wasn't belligerent, right? He probably wasn't angry, throwing shit. But this idea that we don't talk to people while they're drinking, that's absolutely ludicrous. And so Ebby got Bill to the hospital, man. They went through the steps, okay? And he's explaining to him this spiritual program of action. Then at the end, Bill says, my friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs. Particularly, it was imperative to work with others as he had worked with me. Faith without works was dead. And how appallingly true for the alcoholic. For if the alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again. And if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. I love this little paragraph. Okay, not only do we demonstrate these principles, okay, I'm going to live these steps. My inventory, my quick step 6 and 7, my quick amends if I done harm, I'm going to live that in all my affairs, my home, my work, my social life, everywhere, okay? But it's particular that it's funny how if I want to perfect and enlarge a spiritual life, through what? Through meditation? Through prayer? No. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. Now, guys, we wonder why there's so many of us relapsing. If our spiritual life is going to be enlarged and perfected, it has to come with work and self-sacrifice for others. Let's think about that. If my prayers, if my spiritual devotions, all of these great spiritual things that I'm learning, and I think I found some answer that nobody knows about, right? All that's useless, man. It's useless for us alcoholics. That's not what enlarges and perfects our spiritual life. What enlarges and perfects our spiritual life is our 12-step work, is strenuous self-sacrifice for the suffering alcoholic. That's how we grow. That's how we grow spiritually. That's how we get closer to God. That's how we learn more of and are able to do more of what is God's will for us. So let's just drive that home, that our spirituality, our faith without works is dead. We work. We perfect and enlarge our spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others. Okay. Now here's another thing I want to point out as a little introduction. Let's go back to my great story. He sold himself short. Once again, I'm in the 3rd edition. It's going to be a different page, guys. Sorry about that. Okay. So this guy is getting into AA, okay? 12-step call has been made on him. If I'm not mistaken, he's in the hospital. It says the next afternoon and evening, 2 other men visited me, and each told me his story and the things they were doing to try to recover from this tragic illness. They had that certain something that seemed to glow, a peace and a serenity combined with happiness. In the next 2 or 3 days, the balance of this handful of men contacted me, encouraged me, and told me how they were trying to live this program of recovery and the fun they were having doing it. Then and only then, after a thorough indoctrination by 8 or 9 individuals, I was allowed to attend my first meeting. This first meeting was held in the living room of a home and was led by Bill D., the first man that Bill W. and Dr. Bob had worked with successfully. Okay. So, point being here is they had 8 or 9 men from this home group come and talk to this guy about this program of recovery. Never tried to work the steps with him. Never telling him the details of what we're going to do in a step 4, right? Just in a general way, they laid out their story. This is what I was like. This is what happened. And this is what it's like today. And this man got interested. He got interested. He got a little more interested. Okay? So he started going to these meetings. And he was impressed. He was impressed by the meetings. He stayed in Akron for 2 or 3 weeks on his initial trip, trying to absorb as much of the program and philosophy as possible. Spent a great deal of time with Dr. Bob. Okay, this guy was spending a great deal of time with Dr. Bob. He's only in Akron 2 or 3 weeks, so that means he didn't talk to Dr. Bob once a week. He didn't see Dr. Bob at the meeting on Wednesday. We chat in the parking lot and we're here next Wednesday, Bob. See you then. No. Dr. Bob spent time with this man. Okay. So he spent a great deal of time with Dr. Bob whenever he had the time to spare, and in the homes of 2 or 3 other people, trying to see how the family lived the program. Wow. They actually hung around with this guy who was barely sober, letting him see how We live this program. Every evening, we would meet at the home of one of the members and have coffee and donuts and spend a social evening. Well, that's a mighty fine picture of a home group there, people. And so it goes on to show us that finally it was Dr. Bob's afternoon off, and Dr. Bob led him through these steps. Face to face, elbow to elbow. The man was ready. He had been, quote, indoctrinated. He had been sold on the ideas contained in this book. And he was ready to do it. And when that happens, it doesn't take long to take a person through the steps. They're ready. And so with that, we'll get back to this introduction on chapter 7. Okay? Intensive work with other alcoholics. Being a part of their life. Letting them be a part of our life. Is 12-step work. Okay, it tells us that right up in here, perhaps we're not acquainted. We don't have any friends who want or need this program. All right, it tells us how to find some. Now it says when we discover a prospect. All right, we discover a prospect. It doesn't mean we talk to somebody. We know somebody who might want us to talk to them. We want to find out all we can about this person. Okay. Let's say we get a referral from our aunt, right? Our nanny wants us to talk to a friend of hers' son, okay? Yeah, sure, we're all about that. But we need to find out all we can about this person. I call it the resume for AA, all right? And it says we don't waste our time on people who don't want to stop drinking. We are not there to persuade people. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't waste our time on people that are having a hard time getting sober. There's a difference there, people. If somebody does not want this program, we don't waste our time. But I've seen a few people struggle who really wanted it. And for some reason or another, either my bad sponsorship, their bad mental state, somebody else's bad sponsorship, something was missing. But yet you could tell they really wanted this program. They wanted to stop drinking. We don't just chunk them people off to the side. It's the ones that do not want to stop drinking. We don't waste our time with those. So we're going to do this resume, man. We're going to talk to somebody that knows them. We're going to get an idea of the behavior, the problems, the background, the seriousness of his condition, and his religious leanings. Spiritually, how was the person raised? What's their thought? Do you know what their concept of God is? We need all this information so we can put ourselves in his place and see how we would like to be approached if the tables were turned. Okay, so we're going to ask the family, all right, to ask them one question. This person that knows this individual, does he want to quit for good? And if he would go to any extreme to do so. If he says yes, then his friend could draw his attention to us as a person who has recovered. But if we haven't met this person, and the family member has not done this yet, we don't know what we're getting into. Our friend, our prospect, before we meet them, has to want to quit for good and go to any extreme to do so. If he doesn't want to see us, we don't force ourselves upon him. Okay? We are never over anxious. God's God. God's in charge of this person. Family shouldn't try to tell our story. Okay? And I love this. Call on him while he is still jittery. He may be more receptive when depressed. I really like that. Uh, so they give us some instructions here. All right. This is even before we meet the man. They have given us some instructions, some suggestions. All right. And then on our next few videos, man, we'll start going through this phase by phase. I've got this numbered into some different phases that the book suggests us to go through. And I can say that following this 7th chapter, when it comes to helping others, has been more successful. And by that, I mean I have seen more people get and stay sober. I have seen more people who have been sober a while review these steps and come into a better understanding and a better relationship with God. Following these simple suggestions, I did not know how to get and stay sober. I did the previous steps. I surely do not know how to 12-step people. I tried running off of my own mind, my own ideas, my own thoughts, my own great quotes, my own great stories. I tried to formulate all of this crap on my own, and it wasn't producing much fruit. I was not seeing recoveries. And by following these simple instructions, wow, all of a sudden, these people were able to make a contact with God. Nothing to do with me. All I did was follow these instructions in the book. Number 1, for my own recovery, everything up to chapter 12. And when it comes to working with others, helping them understand this program, I follow these simple instructions. Great, guys. We'll see you next time. We'll start off on page 91. All right. Take it easy. Bye.